smarter grant prospecting using GrantStation, which I love, plus artificial intelligence tools to streamline your grant strategy. My name is Aretha Simons. You've probably seen me. Welcome back again. I'm the webinar producer here at TechSoup. I'm going to show you how you can engage. No, I'm not going to show you. I'm going to tell you because you know how you can engage. Type your questions in the Q&A for us. We have members here that can answer your questions in the chat, but we prefer them in the Q&A so we can get those sent out to you. The recording is live. We're going to send the recording and the video replay later today or early in the morning along with the slides. If you need the closed caption, tap on the CC button. I'm going to move out of the way because we have 1 hour for this jam-packed webinar. Alice Runke, she is the president of education at GrantStation. She is here to share along with David Gates. I'm going to turn it over to you, Alice. And David, welcome to this webinar. Over to you.
Thank you, Aretha, and thank you all for being here on this at least cold where I am day. Like Aretha said, I'm Alice Runke, and I'm the president of education and outreach at GrantStation. And together with David Gates, who's our Senior Director of Online Education, we're going to show you how to use GrantStation tools and AI together to really help your strategy. We want to just alert you to our annual GrantStation TechSoup membership sale is coming up February 10th and 11th. So that's the cheapest you could ever get a GrantStation membership. So make sure you write those days down or sign up to get the email reminder so that you can get a membership at that fantastic rate. And there's stuff about that in the chat for you. So what we're going to do today is provide you, like I said, with information on how to use AI tools and GrantStation's tools to make your process more effective and more efficient as you're looking for grant prospects. So we're going to go through just some of those kind of best practice overviews when we look at how to create a grant strategy and then how to incorporate AI tools in an ethical and an effective manner. And then we're going to go through a 4-step process of planning your project, using the tools, analyzing and prioritizing your funders, and then the final step of connecting with those funders and building those relationships. So as we go through, David's also going to demo how to use these tools that we're going to be showing you. And I think you're going to be really excited when you see all that we have to offer today. So just to start out with kind of looking higher level at a grant strategy, like I said, there's a 4-step plan where you're first planning, first looking for those search terms. Again, we're going to show you how to use GrantStation tools and AI to do that as effectively as possible and see your project from a lot of different lenses or angles that you can be searching for. Then how to do your research so that you are identifying the funders that match your area of interest and geography and your project types. And then how do you then take that research, prioritize it in a way that then can be, put on a calendar, knowing that you're going to go after the best funders that are going to be the best return on your investment. And then how you can start that process of reaching out to funders. So when we're teaching about using AI and writing grants, David and I have been doing this since the beginning of 24, practicing in 23, but really starting to teach more about it. And one of the things that we always recommend is that you're using your own source material as you're putting information into the chatbot that you're using, because what it then does is it allows the tool to take your information and pull out what you need from your own information. And that really helps with what they call, I'm going to say that word right, hallucinations, where if you might use a tool and you put in really generic questions and it's going to find an answer for you, it's just not going to be your answer. So we'll talk about using those the types of materials you can use source materials with, and how you can upload those documents, such as grant proposals or annual reports, into the AI tool. How you can use your website and put that information into the tool so it can pull information from your entire website. And what this does is it just, again, it really allows the tool to be taking your work and purposing it for whatever purpose it is that you're using AI for. So if it's in the writing process or the research process, or in this case, the kind of grant prospecting process. So that's something that we're always talking about how important that is and using that material. And some of the types of material that you can use, like I said earlier, you can take your annual report, put that in the tool. You can use a comprehensive grant template that I'm going to talk about in a little while that we teach about at GrantStation. You can take previous proposals, especially those that were successful, and load them up into the chatbot so it can pull information from things that you've previously written. If you have cases for support, you can add those. Your website, we'll talk about that as well, how it can pull information from that. Or it could be things like your strategic plan or your logic model, previous reports that you've written to other funders, press release or media coverage. Again, you'll decide what source material works best for your organization. But what the whole purpose of the source material is to provide that context to the tool so that, again, it's repurposing your own information so you get that accuracy and alignment with what you are doing. So I talked about just a comprehensive grant template. This is something that we use to teach about grant writing at GrantStation, and it's a project planning framework. And so we talk about how you use this and how the process allows you to get all of this information down. And while it does look, every request for proposals look different, every set of application instructions looks different, the funders are really looking for the same things, and it's the things that are in this planning framework. So we teach a lot how to create a planning framework, how to connect all the pieces together for a really coherent and consistent story. And then how once you've done this planning, and then you can take this information and repurpose it to several different funders using their formats and their headings and their flow of information, and how that can really save you a lot of time in working through different applications. Once you have this down, it's easy to pluck the information out and repurpose it for anything from additional grants to solicitations to donors or anything like that. So that's one thing that we use quite a bit to have people learn the process. And number two, if they load it into the AI tools, the tools is going to have all the information that it needs to help you write and repurpose the information. So our first step in the process is to plan, and to plan your funding searches. And I think that it can be, I'm kind of one of those people that gets a new tool and just wants to start, jumping right in and pushing buttons and doing things like that. But we really encourage you to spend some time thinking about your projects. So that you're finding search terms that allow you to see your projects through a lot of different lenses. So there's going to be things that are very obvious that you'll see, that if you're doing work with younger children around education, obviously education is going to be a search term. But there's going to be other terms from your target population and the other things that you're doing with your projects to be pulling in a different funders who might fund a component or a different angle in your project. So here, right here is an example of a tutoring program for foster youth. Education is a great search term to use, but you really want to also explore youth services, child welfare, strengthening families. All those kinds of lenses are going to find a different set of funders for you. And you want as many different types of funders as you can get to apply to. So this planning really helps. And David is now going to show us, how to kind of plan using GrantStation and AI tools. So I'll
Thanks,
turn it over
Alice.
to David.
Yeah, so first, just to kind of talk about GrantStation. Within GrantStation's database, we have over 200 different search terms that you can use to tailor your searches. And these terms include, things that are very broad, like health and wellness, and others that are a lot more specific, for example, STEM education. And as Alice mentioned, common mistake is just to focus on the most obvious search terms, and maybe you overlook some that might be relevant to you. But fortunately, AI can streamline this process and help you view your project through different lenses. So it's essentially giving you another set of eyes to your project. Maybe you've been working on your project for a long time. You're always looking at it in one specific way, but the AI can maybe just take a look at it from a slightly different angle, give you some additional ideas about the search terms that you might use when you're actually doing your funding research. One thing to note, that GrantStation search term page is public. It does not require a GrantStation membership. So when you get the slides, you can take a look at that page, and that'll give you a little bit of inspiration as well. But we do have a couple of tools that you can use to streamline this process that are kind of AI related tools. So option number one is to test out our search term GPT. So a GPT is kind of a custom version of ChatGPT that we have built. It includes all of GrantStation's search terms. It is a free tool that anyone can use. It does require a ChatGPT account to use. We're going to look at that here in a moment, but this would be, the type of prompt we would ask for, review the organization's programs, identify relevant search terms, and we'll look at that here shortly. Option number two is to use GrantStation's Help Me Search AI Assistant. Now, this does require a GrantStation membership, and I'll show you exactly how you use it here in a moment. But once you are using that, it's going to suggest some search terms or some primary search terms for you, as well as secondary search terms, and just streamlines that process pretty quickly for you. So let's jump in and just take a look at these options. So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. Okay, so you should be seeing ChatGPT now. Now I'm using a specific version of ChatGPT. It is a custom GPT. Like I said, it's a kind of specific tool. I dropped a link for that in the chat, so anyone can go ahead and use it. It is also in the slides, so you have it. What I have done here is I have uploaded my source material. So Alice was talking about the source material. I am uploading a case for support. And then I enter in my prompt and say, please review my organization's programs and identify relevant GrantStation search terms that align with our work. Only include exact search terms from the official GrantStation list. Do not create or paraphrase terms. So how this tool works is I have uploaded into the tool's knowledge GrantStation search terms, some explanations about what each search term means. And when I enter in this prompt, it's going to read the document that I uploaded about an after-school program, and then it's going to match those search terms that are in its knowledge. And let's see how well
And
it
David,
does.
can
So I'm
I
going to do it.
interrupt you for a second? One of
Yeah.
the kind of using that little bit of that prompt to not create or paraphrase terms, that's also kind of important. Sometimes it likes to come up with its own words or take different concepts and pulls them together. So we don't want them to do that. We want to know exactly how they're aligned. So,
Mhm.
that's just a good little part to put in your prompts as well.
Yeah, sometimes you have to be a little strict with it because it starts
Yeah.
to think outside the box. Okay, so we have within the GrantStation obvious search terms, things like after school or out of school programs. Makes a lot of sense. This is an after school tutoring program. It's K through 12 education, at-risk youth. We do have some mentoring, so it gives that justification. There's some motivational sessions in there. Low income, children and youth, all of those make sense. Those are search terms that I would probably want to use when looking through a grant database like GrantStation. Now we have some slightly alternative angles with it. So education in general. So that would be the broader kind of scope. So it would be looking at those funders who might not be as specific about what they're funding, but they're funding education initiatives. We have things like poverty, families and parenting, self-esteem programs. Rural affairs is a nice one because the town we're talking about is a rural community. So that might be, a slightly different angle of how we're looking at it. But I would take these search terms and then I might use them either when I'm using a grant database like GrantStation just to kind of streamline that process. So, looking for rural affair grants or looking for grants for at-risk youth or after school or out of school programs. It's going to give me slightly different results with each one of those. So that is a free tool that you can check out. Once again, I dropped the link for that in the chat. It will also come in the slides for you as well. But beyond that, we do have a tool within GrantStation, this Help Me Search tool. Just to help you know how you find it, find grant makers, US Charitable, that's where that's going to show up for you. We're not going to spend a ton of time explaining how to use GrantStation today because we actually have a full demo next week with TechSoup that's going to really dive into all of these different features. But it is an AI tool, so we wanted to kind of show you how it works. So if I click on Help Me Search, all I need to do is then follow the prompts. So I'm going to say, I work in California. Got next. And I have found a real nonprofit that trains shelter dogs to be service animals and partners them with veterans to improve mental health outcomes. So I gave just a short description of it, and then I entered in their URL, the Shelter to Shoulder program. And then if I click Get Terms, it's just going to take about a minute to actually go through, find the search terms. But just on the back end, this is working in a very similar way to what we had previously seen, with just some slight differences. What it's actually doing is it's taking a look at the information, the metadata from the organization's website. It's also looking at that short description that I included, and then it's matching those with relevant GrantStation terms. So I can see, once again, we have primary search terms, animal assisted therapy and service dogs. So yeah, that's a very obvious search term. That would definitely be one of the most important ones for us. We have veterans and military affairs, mental health, animal welfare, people with disabilities. And we also have some secondary search terms that we could add within GrantStation, social services in general, suicide prevention, and what I can actually do is just click Find Funders. It's going to take that AI search. It's going to then put it into GrantStation's database. And I am going to see how many funders we have. Yep, so I have 748 matches. If I try to narrow it down a little bit, so for example, get rid of those national funders and just look in California, now I'm down to 325 matches. So could definitely check those out. You probably would want to refine it a little bit further just because that might be a little bit much to look through. But you can see how it just streamlines that first step in the process, finding those search terms and getting everything started. And we actually moved a little bit into the second step of the process just because it has pretty easy to do on GrantStation now. But now we're going to jump back to these slides. And Alice is going to talk about the next step in the process, which is the research.
Yeah. And this might answer your question, Molly, who in the chat about how else can you further refine? Because it was searching all of those search terms and you could start to narrow them down and look at just one angle, like maybe just start with the service animals, then maybe start with mental health and that sort of thing. So you can continue to kind of creep down into the area and find a reasonable amount that you can continue to look at. Because in this process now that we've kind of done the planning, we've thought of our search terms, or we've had AI help us think of search terms as you're out there using databases or looking for those funders, you want to find as kind of all the leads that are possible for you. And so it doesn't mean that in those lists, like for example, there was what 345 or something like that. That doesn't mean that all of these are going to be ones that end up going on your list. You're going to start to look at things like geographic area and making sure that you align in their geographic scope. We looked at California in that example, so there could be ones that maybe only funded Los Angeles, and you don't do work in Los Angeles. And so you would start to narrow down that scope of geography. Overlapping in mission. So kind of doing that research and looking into what the funder, what their mission is, and seeing that connective tissue. Looking to those funders who actually are actively accepting applications. Sometimes you'll find in a database a lot of funders, but they're not accepting applications. GrantStation, in our GrantStation verified profiles, they're all accepting applications. So we've done that work for you. Um, Another way to kind of look at that is to look at the grant cycle. So perhaps, you need the money at the end of this year, but the cycle, doesn't start until the middle of 27 or, something like that. And you're not going to be able to overlap with the timing. And so that's going to narrow down some of your options. And then also just looking at the different priorities. Some funders like to fund direct services. Some funders will support you in capital campaigns or acquisitions for land or something. So kind of finding also that overlap with what they like to give and the things that they do give and matching that up with what you need. So this step of the process is really just, again, looking at everything as broadly as you can and coming up with that, and then starting to narrow down and make decisions about which ones would be the best for you to use.
Mm-hmm.
So David's going to take over in showing us how to use tools to do that.
Yeah, so with these tools, you can kind of combine them in different ways just to try to make sure you find as many funding results as possible. So you can use AI for a quick overview of the funding landscape, and we'll look at this here in a moment. So for example, can you identify family foundations that support youth development in West Virginia? Now, when using AI for grant research, there are some pros and cons of it. It is much better than Google as it kind of it doesn't necessarily understand intent or nuance in your mission and programs, but it has a better idea where it's not necessarily looking for the exact keywords. So you are going to get better results than Google if you're using it to try to find some foundations. The cons, however, is that the results will often be funders with the largest online presence. So these large language models like ChatGPT or Gemini are trained on publicly available content. So suggestions are drawn from patterns in public information, not necessarily live, up-to-date information. So when we think about it that way, the funders who have the biggest online presence, who are releasing lots of press releases, are in the press, have a well-structured website, are going to be the ones that the large language model finds the first. And those might be the easiest for you to find as well. But you can use a grant database like GrantStation to run more structured searches, where you're actually going to systematically go through various keywords you've identified. You save top leads for the next step. And you can also find detailed funder info after doing a search using a chatbot. So you could kind of combine those two. If a chatbot gives you one, and they don't necessarily have a website because some of them don't, you could maybe find that in a database. So let's take a look here at how we might do this. So let me jump back to ChatGPT. Okay. So I'm going to start a new chat. And I'm going to enter in just a simple prompt. Can you identify family foundations that support youth development in West Virginia? Enter this in, and it's going to search through its knowledge, find a few that are good options for me. And then you can see it's actually giving the logic. I'm going to click answer now, just because so we don't have to spend the next 30 seconds or so watching it give out its logic. But as you can see, it's going to give me a list of some different foundations. We have the Hess Family Foundation, has some different focus areas. The Chris Hess Foundation has some of the focus areas and types of support. Interestingly enough, it is linking to GrantStation. I haven't actually
Oh,
seen
that's
that
cool.
before. I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go look into this a little bit. But generally, when it gives you these links, it is something you can go verify, look at your self. We have the Freshwater Family Foundation. Alice, you know a little bit about some
Yeah.
of these funders in West Virginia. Were these some good fits?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know them,
Okay.
interestingly.
Okay.
So that's kind of interesting as well. They are family foundations. They're focusing on cities. This is not the extent of family foundations giving to youth in West Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
however. I mean, again,
Yeah.
that's why we're showing it can be a good start. It can, kind of get a few ideas going for you, but it's not as comprehensive as using a database and that sort
Mm-hmm.
of thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
but we can kind of get started with those. But yeah, you can always jump into ChatGPT, Gemini, use it to kind of begin that process. But then you can use a tool like GrantStation in a little bit more of a structured way with some various search terms to see some different results. So what I did is I ran a search for West Virginia, and I'm looking for three different areas of interest. And these are all kind of came up in our suggested areas of interest before: after school or out of school programs, at-risk youth, and children or youth. So now it is showing me 99 funders within GrantStation that match these that either give in West Virginia and then match one of those filters that we can use. And we can go through, look at these different funders. You can see if we have the application deadline, and it gives you the geographic scope, and it also tells you what search term actually matched, and you can kind of scan through some of these as you go. But I'm going to actually look at this funder, the Claude Worthington Benedum Foundation, and I'm going to view their profile. So on their profile, we'll see a variety of different information. We have their profile tab, their grants awarded, the grant stats, which you can look at, and the key leaders in the organization. I did just want to note the profile all right here, because we're going to reference this in a moment when you're actually analyzing if it's a good fit. You can copy and paste that. And that is what I'm going to do here in a moment when we look at the next step. But this is just how you would start to look on GrantStation. Once again, we're running an hour-long webinar next week that's going to go into all of these different features if you want to know how GrantStation works specifically. But just wanted to kind of show you where I'm getting some of this information that I'm going to then input into a tool here shortly. So we have this, and we also have information like their 990s. So those are two things that I'm going to pull from here in a moment when we actually move on to the next step. So let's jump back here and go to the slides. And now we're going to talk about analyzing and prioritizing your leads once you've actually found some funding opportunities. And Alice is going to talk about this for us.
Yeah. So now our step is to take that, kind of larger list and narrow it down into the ones that are the best fits for us and that are going to give us the best return on our investment because none of us have any extra time. We want to spend our time on things that will work for us. So that's what we're doing in this step. You can kind of prioritize funders if you want, where you can put them, in different categories of, red light, orange light, or yellow light, green light. You can do strong, reasonable, weak, 1, 2, 3, ABC, whatever kind of priority base that you're setting things up as. And what you're starting to do is look into each different funder and do the research to figure out, who have they given to in the past. By seeing like the types of organizations that they've given, how much that they've given, the areas where the geographic areas where they've given, those are all things that are going to help you decide, is this a good fit for us? Just as an example, you go to a funder who funds, let's say, $250,000 a year. You need $100,000. Looking that they've given in the past $5,000 grants to everybody, you would then realize either, I can only ask for $5,000 or, it's just not a fit for us. So by looking at what they've done in the past through their 990s or which are their tax forms, or looking on the website where we have the information, you can see that who they've given to help you determine if this is a, again, strong, reasonable, weak lead. Looking at their application process, this is a really important piece, and someone in the chat had asked, do you analyze for that? We don't on our website and in our profiles, but that is something that you will want to do. Looking at their application process, is it, a quick kind of turnaround? Is there a lot of work and you're going to be writing a 50-page document? That makes a big difference in deciding if this is a good fit for you. So you want to go and look at that process, look at that application and see how much work it is. Also, just looking, do we have a relationship with that funder? The more that we have relationships with funders, the chances of our being funded go up. So if, sometimes you might have a really, really strong fit, but maybe you need a little time to develop that relationship with that funder or something like that. So there could be times when, looking at those relationships could be important for you to decide as well. So some of the things when we're kind of, again, looking at ranking our funders, there's no universal way. You'll find what works best for you. And what makes an A funder to you or a B funder. But some of the things that you really do want to look at for an A funder is that strong mission alignment. Without that, without connecting on an area of interest, or a priority like that, even if you write the best application in the world, it's not what they fund, right? So that's a really key understanding to know if that's a good fit for you. You might find an A funder to be, somebody who's maybe in the middle, but it's a really easy application. You don't have, to spend a lot of time on it. You can, kind of knock it out in a morning, really simple, worth your time and effort. If you have that relationship with the funder, that's always a thing to, rank that funder higher. Because like I said, that really helps you, it really increases your chances of being funded. When we are looking and ranking funders, one of the things that I encourage you to do is to look local first. So, to look at your local community foundations, look at your local businesses, and build those relationships first on the ground level. And then you can kind of scale up to more regional or national funders or regional or national corporations. But usually, if you haven't done that first step of building those relationships with funders on the ground, those national funders aren't going to look at you as high because you haven't done that yet. That's kind of low hanging fruit, I guess, if you will, to start. And then if there could just be a really, a game changer funder for you, somebody who is providing large amounts of money, it's going to make a big difference in your organization. You want to really build your own capacity to be able to write that grant, implement that grant, and that might be an A grant for you. So again, this really varies from what your own capacity is, your own situation, what's going on. But you'll want to determine that within your organization. What makes something the best return on our investment given our circumstances. So thinking through that. So now David's going to show us how to use tools so that we don't have to think as much, although I still say we do have to think through it.
Yes. So there's a few different ways you can use both of these tools. So you can use GrantStation profiles for, the detailed summary of their priorities and the giving history. As we saw when we briefly looked at that funder profile, there's a lot of information about that foundation, where they've given, how much they've given, what their priorities are. It had links to their 990s. All of that can be used to really analyze that funder and find some of that information that Alice just talked about. You can then use ChatGPT to analyze info in a GrantStation profile. You could also summarize or interact with a 990. Just a note, we're going to look at that, but I have seen a little bit more of hallucinations with 990s than some other kind of documents that it's reviewing. And part of it is just the way the 990 is structured, because it's a really long tax document. It has all of these different boxes that are kind of going from left to right. Sometimes it does a very good job with it. Sometimes it can kind of start to make things up a little bit. So just kind of take it with a grain of salt. We're going to look at an example here where I did a good job for it. Also, we have another custom GPT called the Grant Fit Evaluator that you can kind of check out. It just takes you through a series of questions, helps you decide, whether or not this grant or this funder is actually a good fit for your program or project. But some example prompts that you can look at. So you could analyze info in a GrantStation profile. We're going to do that here right now, and interacting with a 990, and we'll do that here as well. So let's jump back, do a quick demo of each of those. Okay, so we're back at ChatGPT. What I did here is I have this prompt to review the funder profile in the next message and the attached case for support. After reviewing, do you think this funder is a good fit? Provide justification along with ways we could strengthen the fit. Then what I've done is I've attached the, the source material, so the case for support, so it understands a little bit more about my organization. Then if I hit enter, it's going to ask for that information that I promised it in the next message. Okay, so then I am going to copy and paste the information. And what I'm doing is I just copy and pasted that directly from GrantStation. So this is the Claude Worthington Benetton Foundation's GrantStation profile. I enter this in. It's going to analyze whether it is or is not a good fit. It'll provide some strengths, some weaknesses, and maybe some ways that we could improve a little bit. So we see here where the fit is strong, geographic alignment. So we knew that this was going to be a good fit for us. Also, that they work in education, so expanded and extended learning. And we have the focus
I love
on
how they pulled it
educational
directly.
outcomes.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
David, go back up there where it has where it pulled it right from Benetton's stuff of their stated interests. So it's like they found that connective tissue for you right there, which is really cool.
Yep. And they focus on educational outcomes. So, outcomes oriented. We have GPA improvement, high graduation rates, system level impact. Where the fit is weaker, so they, talk about career education and workforce alignment. We touch on that a little bit, but like they say, it's implied at best and it's not explicit. So it's kind of the idea, there's some career development, but it's not necessarily a central focus of it. Then we have limited systems level or partnership language. In that case for support, we don't have to talk about the partners. It's a shorter document, so that could be something that we would improve on a little bit. And we can see some good suggestions here. Introduce like career exploration, exposure elements, highlight partnerships and community systems, tie
Yeah.
education outcomes to long-term community impact. Any thoughts of this, Alice?
Yeah, no, just I know Benedum very well. It's our highest funder here in the state of West Virginia. And those things all really align. Again, they like to be part of a larger ecosystem, all those sorts of things that they're saying here. It rings true to who they are. And I think that the analysis of this program is spot on, that it
Mm-hmm.
isn't doing the things that the chat GPT is telling us. And then again, then you can decide, if
Yeah.
that's an area that you want to go into, or just say, for example, we're not interested in doing the workforce development thing. That's just not the direction we're going. And that's fine as well. But it does give you those good suggestions to be more in line with that funder.
Absolutely. And then, if you were actually using this to research and you are, reporting to your board or reporting to the executive director, you could take it one step further, say, summarize, this overview in a single paragraph. And then it's going to give you a nice, concise paragraph about why they're a good fit. You could then tailor that a little bit. Of course, you don't want to just copy and paste that. Tailor that information a little bit, and it can help you streamline the process, show you maybe why you're applying for this grant versus others and why you're investing time in one over another. So that is one way to use a GrantStation profile to analyze fits. Another thing you can do is interacting with a 990. So like I said, you do sometimes get hallucinations on this one. So I'm not doing this one live. I did this. I vetted this information just to ensure it was accurate before we presented it to you. But here's what I did. I downloaded their 990 from ProPublica using the link at GrantStation. And then I just told it to please review the attached 990 and provide information only from the grants awarded section. Based on that data, what is a reasonable grant amount to request for an after-school education program? What amounts did other grantees receive for similar youth-focused or educational programming? Only reference grantees specifically listed in the 990. So it went through, reviewed the award section, and then it pulled out some of these examples. So we have, the Old Brick Playhouse Company, it's an after-school art program, 30,000. Another kids program, 50,000, 75. This one was a bigger one, 150,000. And then as well as some with academic support and school connected programs. And they're varying from 40,000 up to 150,000. Some of these ones, including the United Way. Going up to the search again quickly. So this is what I inputted, MJ. This is also in the slides. So this exact prompt is in the slides, so you can review it. And then it comes down and it analyzed the grant patterns. So for example, on the lower end, pilot or arts-based projects, 30 to 50,000, mid-range and upper mid-range as well. And then it has a recommended grant request amount. So a reasonable request for an after-school education program would be about 50 to 75,000. So probably in line with what Claude Benningham might do. Any thoughts with this one, Alice?
No, I mean, that's really helpful, right? To know what, how much you should be asking for, what sounds like a reasonable fit, all those sorts of things. So that, that all is very helpful information to helping you decide if this is a good fit for you.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so let's go back now to the slides and take a look at the next step, which is building the grants calendar.
Yeah. And then, like David said, just so you guys know, because we are going through this really fast and we realize that, but when you get the slides, you're going to have a link. And if you click on that link, you're going to go to the chat GPT and the results of that. So you'll be able to look at that yourself in a little more detail. So just realize that you'll be able to kind of analyze the information after the webinar as well. So now that we have narrowed down that list and created this, A, B, and C tiers of funders. Putting your calendar together, obviously, you want to take your A funders, the top funders, and put them into your calendar, making sure that you have the time to complete those applications as on based on their deadlines and things like that. If you really look ahead, we always encourage that your grant strategies are looking ahead 6 to 12 months into the future, because you need that time to prepare a really great application. So this calendar will really help you kind of see into the future when you need the most time in developing the proposals or developing the relationships or whatever it is that you're doing with the funder. And then also it'll just help you to make sure that you can manage your internal capacity. So perhaps you have, summer is your super busy time and you have an application that's due in July. Perhaps you'll have to work on that earlier if you can, because your staffing is, really working on a program at that time, but it just kind of allows you to make that fit for capacity. Also, if you do have a GrantStation membership, you can also use your dashboard to track your leads list, if you will. So you can prioritize those in your dashboard and say, these are my A funders. The deadlines auto-populate for you. And that sort of thing. And we're working on more ability to connect with your calendar. We're not quite there yet from our dashboard to your calendar, but it's something that we're working on in the next round of improvements so that would help you build your calendar even quicker. So our last piece of the process is that connection with funders. That what you're really trying to do is have that outreach to a funder, start building those relationships. If you're just new to this, new to a funder, you can start by doing outreach emails. Keep them very concise. And really, take the funder's language and kind of parrot it back to the funder, if you will. So make sure that you've done your research and you've shown, how you align together, and you're communicating to that funder again very quickly and concisely how you have this overlap and why you think that you would be good partners together to address the issue that you're addressing. I know that a lot of times that AI can really help us create those emails. So we're going to talk about that and how you could, potentially change them up a little bit, have them come from different board members or from your staff, or, making sure that you have invitations to events that are going out and things like that. And you could, again, you'd want to use your source material. So using your own calendar for yourself, using your own events, planning, whatever it is that you're doing, and information on your programs. Again, the AI can help you with that first draft.
Yeah, so now we're going to just take a look at a couple of sample prompts here that you could use. Within the slides, there are, like Alice said, there are links to these conversations in ChatGPT that you can actually go look at. But both of these examples, what I've done is I am providing it with source material, so information about my organization, as well as a link for it to visit about a specific funder. We're going to look at the second example here right now in our last ChatGPT demo here. So I'm going to move back over to ChatGPT. And as you can see, I started a new chat here a second ago, and I entered in this prompt: write a warm, engaging invitation email to this funder. So this is the Ross Foundation, inviting them to an open house about our Steps to Success program. Review their website and the attached case for support to align our work with the funder's goals. So when I put this in, it's going to visit that website, it's going to read the attached document, and then it's going to create that initial outreach letter for this kind of hypothetical event that I am talking. So let's see how it goes. Okay, so we have the subject, you're invited, the Step 6 Success Program. We have the foundation contact. And it summarizes what the Steps to Success program is. We've long admired the Ross commitment. So it's pulling information directly from this funder. And then talks about this open house. So I didn't actually tell it about the open house. So it's kind of making this up just so you're aware. When you don't provide that information, I didn't say this is what we're going to do in the open house. This is just kind of its suggestion of maybe what we should do. But these are pretty good pretty good ideas and likely things that you would have if you were running an open house. And kind of finishes that off. Any thoughts with that one, Alice?
Yeah, no, what the other part that we're always teaching when we're looking at, using these tools is that, we put information in, even if it's source material, we get, an output from the system that we're using, if it's ChatGPT or Google or whatever. But then there's always that editing stage as well. You don't just cut and paste whatever it said and say that's what I'm using. That it's always kind of an iterative process of working with the material, taking this then out of it and then again editing and making it in your own voice and making sure all the details are correct and all that sort of thing. But I mean, look how far it got you started without having to do all that research, on the funder and figure out how you align and all that sort of thing. These tools that we're showing you really help you make that initial linkage that you can then spend more of your time developing.
Yep, absolutely. So it really streamlines the process for you. Okay, so let's jump back to these slides. And Alice is just going to wrap us up here.
Okay. So just, we do think that AI tools are very versatile. They can really support you in a lot of different ways. Again, we kind of shared what we feel are the ethical ways of using it and kind of the best practices of using your own source material, then doing your own edits. You're ultimately responsible for anything that you submit. So it's a really helpful tool and can really speed things up for us so that we can spend more of our time working with our participants or building relationships and partnerships. So I really feel that these tools can really help amplify what you're already doing, help you be more effective and efficient. And with the writing process, that really is the Chat GPT, the large language models, the writing part is their strength. Not so much at analyzing, data or something. I know that some of them can do that, but a lot of these that we use, like ChatGPT, really helping us with language and repurposing language is a really powerful use. So we really encourage you to use these. I feel like it can help those small organizations, kind of level up and be as competitive as those larger organizations who've always had a larger staff to do all sorts of different things. And this can really help us, especially us grassroots organizations on the ground, to build capacity to get those dollars. So with all of that, we can take questions. I do want to remind you about our sale so that you can use all of our tools and for only $119 a year. The best sale days, February 10th and 11th, 2026. And you buy it at TechSoup. And I know there's a couple of questions here in the Q&A.
Yeah, let's take a look.
One person asked, they said, if we're registered in the US but work only in Syria, would GrantStation still be able to find funders for us, or does it only pull for organizations in the US working in the US? We do have a US charitable database, we have a Canadian charitable database, and we have an international database. So you would use the international database that we have. And then Mona asked, how important is the relationship building piece with the funder? It is sometimes not that easy. I agree. It is not sometimes very easy. And sometimes they, even if you're doing all the right things, they're not responding or they're not connecting with you, and it's really frustrating. So I think my like suggestion is you always try, right? You always try to do that outreach. The more that you can, the more that they know about you, the more that you come up in conversations in different places that they're at, the more awareness that they have of your organization. Again, it just increases your chance of being funded. Building those relationships, is when you can, is a really good way to spend your time. Because, like I said, it just increases your kind of funding rate, if you will. So it's something that you might have to put into your calendar, for building those relationships. It's not 100% required. I've certainly gotten grants from people that we've never had a relationship with. But the more that you can kind of do that in your overall process, just the more sustainable you'll be as an organization.
Makes sense.
Um,
And Mona says, how important is the relationship building piece with a funder? Sometimes
yeah,
it's not that easy.
yeah, that's what I just answered.
Oh, okay. Yeah, got
Yeah.
that. All right. Do we have any
Sometimes
others?
when I'm not the speaker, I don't know what you're saying either, David, because I'm
Yes, I'm reading
concentrating
the
on the
chat.
chat.
Yeah. So I was reading the chat.
Um, April asked, is it okay for us to register for next week's training, even if we can't attend, so that we receive the recording slides? And yes, absolutely, April. Go ahead and register. Then you'll get the recording. You'll be able to use it uh, when you have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Then I see from Molly, does the tool include filters for our DAFs, trust-based philanthropy? What differentiates this tool from Candid or GrantWatch? Any thoughts, Alice?
So yeah, so we usually DAFs are kind of harder to find. We do have a filter for that, but it's not as easy to find as you might think. So really with those, I suggest that you work with your local community foundations. They have a lot of the DAFs. And so I would start talking and building those relationships with your community foundations to start that work. We don't really have a filter for trust-based philanthropy or anything like that. We do have just the basics of, a corporate foundation versus a independent foundation versus a community foundation, those kinds of things. So just some generalities. Um, so those are some of the different ways you can search on GrantStation.
Let me see if there's any
There
others that we
was
didn't
something that
address.
I had seen.
I saw a
Um,
question from Patty. Can you share examples of case for support with us as a starting point, what to include? So Patty, the case for support I'm creating, I am not an expert in creating a case for support, so I probably wouldn't, just use the example I did. This was mainly for uploading information about a program or project. So I wouldn't use mine as an example, but I would look for some, experts or resources that can kind of get you started. I use ChatGPT just to be kind of honest about kind of creating mine and starting it for this hypothetical program.
I know lots of folks have asked if they can use it with the tools without a paid ChatGPT account. And yes, you need an account, but it can be a free account, so you don't have to buy it. And you asked, is there a GrantStation AI option that is not training the tool? So if you use the chat GPTs that David sends, you can set your own setting to make it not train the model. So you can heighten your own privacy. And so you can do that individually just by using the tools that we're sending you. Then you change your settings within ChatGPT to not train the model. So that's how that works. Oh, the link for the GrantStation reminder isn't working, Donna said. Um, Okay. Try to clear your browser's cache and cookies. Okay. And then if it all else fails, put February 10th on your calendar, go to TechSoup on what their main page on their website on February 10th or 11th, and you can purchase it. So, but oh, an OLA subscription. So we at GrantStation, we started an online learning academy, which is OLA. And so instead of buying webinars from us a la carte, which you can still do, we did a subscription model where you can get all of our online education for a year by joining our online learning academy. It is $150 off right now, so it's only $3.99. Hey, David?
Yep.
$3.99 through February 12th. So if you do want to become a member of our online learning academy, you can join before February 12th and get that for only $399 for a whole year of online education. So with all of that, we're right at 3 o'clock, David. I don't think we've ever been so good to be
Perfect
straight up
timing.
at 3. All the questions are answered. If you have any questions for us, feel free to reach out to me or David or info@GrantStation. I know you'll want to kind of relook at the slides and the video as it comes out to learn these things. But we really hope that this helps you streamline your process, find those best fit funders, and help you, work on those very important missions that you do. So with all of that, if that's it, I think we'll just go ahead and sign off and just be looking for an email from TechSoup.
Perfect. Thanks, Alice. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.